Hi there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Automotive Talent Show podcast, the podcast where we get to know and gain insight from leaders within the automotive industry. My guest this week is the podcast's first international guest. He specializes in the digital marketing space, partnering with automotive groups across North America. He has his own podcast series. Welcome to the podcast, Herb Anderson. How are you, brother?
Hey, what's up, dude? I'm doing awesome, man. Thanks for inviting me, dude. This is very exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited for today's session as well, mate. You and I consider you a friend, a mate from across the ditch, so to speak, mate. We've been connected on LinkedIn. We've had a lot of banter. I've been on your podcast, and I follow all the stuff that you do, and think you add a lot of great value out there, and appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, man. Likewise, dude. It's awesome that's why I love just the world that we live in today, man, that we can connect with the distance and everything and still have a relation. Pretty dope.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I've got a great understanding of the Herb Anderson backstory, but maybe my listeners might not have a great understanding of the Herb Anderson backstory. So give us the overview, mate. Give us the beer coaster version of what the Herb Anderson story is all about.
Wow, man, where to begin? Okay, so you're going to take me down memory lane. So let's see, 20 plus years in the business. I started as a loop tech tire technician. And then I wanted to be a service technician, but that didn't pan out. So I ended up being a service writer, became a service manager, then had I went on the export side of things, so doing business internationally on the collision side of the business. Did that for a little bit, then went to work for one of the big companies, when it comes to, digital and that sort of thing, which was Cox Automotive under book. And that's really where things kind of started to take off for me, kind of like the operations side, which I already had in combination with the data and all that information that Cox Automotive has on the industry as a whole.
Yep.
Just kind of allowed me to kind of connect the dots. And yeah, man, I had a lot of fun doing that. Then I went to work for one of the 3 distributors for Toyota here in the U.S. and then started that time, and that kind of started to grow some legs, and dealers started reaching out, and I started consulting, and little by little started my own business, and now I do that full time, just 100% working for myself on the consulting with dealers on digital, and it's kind of evolved a little bit now into vendor management, which allows me to work with more dealers, because what I was doing prior, just the consulting side, was very limited. And now I'm just happy to kind of review, what dealerships are doing and how it looks on the digital side of the house, and just help them figure out, man, what's working, what's not working, and if they need new partnerships or get rid of some partnerships, I can introduce them to some people that I trust, that I've worked with in the past. And yeah, it's exciting, man. It's fun to see, to take a dealership that has some issues, right? And then and make some tweaks, readjust the strategy, introduce them to some new partners that work, right? That do the work, and then just kind of see their business change, man. It's fun. I love it. I love doing it, and I hope I can continue to do that for many years to come.
Yeah, I in following your career, especially over the last few years, mate, I think it's fair to say you've really found your groove and your niche now. I think, and what's the saying? Water finds its own level, doesn't it? I think that's a great sort of analogy for people's professional careers and life. You start off going, this is the direction I want to go in. You go, well, maybe that was, that I love this about it. Don't quite love this. You make slight adjustments along the way, but eventually you really find what you get energized for when you jump out of bed in the morning, don't you? It's
yeah, man. Yeah, it's fun in the sense that I'm constantly learning, you know what I mean? So I'm constantly learning. Obviously I try to keep myself sharp just by reading a lot, and just connecting with people like yourself and, you know, some other of our connections on LinkedIn and learning from them. But at the same time, being there and doing it at the dealership and then playing around with things and experimenting with things and seeing things fail too, because not everything I do, you know, yields a result. There are some times that we put some things in place that clearly didn't work. You know what I mean? But that's part of the experience. And quite frankly, that's what marketing should be all about. We should always be experimenting. You know what I mean? Constantly. But you got to measure it, right? Because if you don't measure it, it's not going to get managed. And I think that's where sometimes we fall short in the industry as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's the thing, like businesses like ours that work with the industry as a whole, you know, every organization you step into, you walk in with the idea of adding as much value for them as you physically can. But at the same time, you know, you're learning from them. You know, you're taking on some things and initiatives that they do, and then that allows you to pass that on to the next business that you work with. So, you know, working with businesses like ours that work with the industry as a whole, you know, you take all of those learnings and you give those learnings at the same time. That's the value that you know, although we come at it from different angles, that's the value that people like us really add to the industry, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, it's interesting where we are as an industry because, you know, the digitization of you know, everything, not just marketing, but everything really has a form of has a digital component about it. And then what that's done to the consumer more than anything else. So I did a podcast recently with the with the writers and producers of the movie Suckers. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it was,
Suckers,
you know what I mean?
Suckers transcends, Suckers for the old school auto people, mate. Everyone knows Suckers.
Yeah, man. So to see kind of the perception of the industry back in those days and to see how we've grown so much, we don't even give ourselves credit how much we've grown as an industry. You know what I mean? So and with that comes adjustments. You know, there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made at the dealership level. So, for example, a dealership today in 2020 that's running their operation without some sort of an analytics expert in their showroom floor or not in their showroom floor, you know, as part of their team, or that has a vendor that all they do is look at data and break that down and paint that picture, they're missing out, dude, because everything that you do has a data component to it. You know what I mean? Even direct mail, even traditional form of advertisement has a direct component, even TV, because if you're really doing it right and you're investing your money on television, right, or radio, you should be monitoring your website, those spots hit, and then see if that's causing a spike in activity to your website. If you're not doing those things, man, you just don't have the whole picture. And if you don't have the whole picture, then how can you make decisions? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, one of the things that I wanted to cover on in this chat, mate, is that, you know I've got a very good awareness of what you do, and I follow your content, and you put a lot of great stuff out there, and the metrics that you get into, you know,
thanks,
I think,
man.
wow, that's the detail we need to be going on, you know, like it's. But I look and feel, and I'm in the industry all day, every day in this part of the world, and I'm not sure there's actually any business in this part of the world that's actually following that sort of mindset. I think that's a gap that we really need to explore. You know, we here in Australia and other developed markets, we do look at the US and say, what are we doing? What are you doing over there that we can learn from? And I think that's one of the next great initiatives that we could really drive, is to look into that digital. Because it is so, yeah, as you say, if you're not doing it, you're missing out, I believe. I think the same as you.
Yeah, I mean, look at where we are right now, just, you know, worldwide, dude, with COVID and everything that's happening with that, you know what I mean? Like, it's such an interesting perspective that we had to get to this level for progress to really take shape. And what I mean by, you know, people confuse change with progress all the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and let me explain that really quick. So change is going to happen, right? everything's going to change. You're going to change as a person. Your business is going to change. Change is going to happen no matter what. There's external factors that go into play, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's going to happen. Sorry, my phone here is kind of going crazy. It's it's gonna be something that happens to you no matter what. But
Yeah.
progress is the choice. Is you choose to evolve. You know what I mean? So the industry has been changing for a while. Why? Because digitization and consumers wanting to buy online, and consumers, that buy on Amazon, now they want to translate that experience to buying the car, or consumers that do 14 plus hours research before they ever walk into the dealership. All that stuff has changed the industry, but nobody's really focused on the progress side of things. But all of a sudden, this COVID thing happens, and now everybody wants to be Carvana, and now everybody wants to have a digital retailing tool on their website, and everybody wants to go pick up cars and drop off cars for the service department. You know what I mean? And it kind of sucks that this had to happen, but at the same time, I'm super glad for the industry because people are awake. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anything that you tell your leaders or the people that are leading your dealership right now, like, hey, let's try this, let's do that, they're going to listen to, and that's a.
Do you think that a lot of the initiatives that have come about through COVID, do you think a lot of those, like, let's jump in a time machine and go 2 years from now, like, hopefully the virus is a thing of the past, it's under control, whatever the case may be. Do you think a lot of the initiatives will actually stay around? Do you think everything will stay around that we're doing as far as that getting back to the basics when it comes to interacting with customers and doing those courteous things? Do you reckon that would be the case?
I love that question because a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me, but it's not even going to be a choice, dude. And here's why. Because the customers know now that they can buy in this way, and they know that they can service their vehicle in this way. And the customers are going to demand that. You know what I mean? Think about how crazy this is, dude. Just 7 months ago, right? If I went to customers and picked up their car and brought it to the dealership, serviced it, and dropped it off at their house. If 7 months ago I would go to somebody's home with a vehicle, let them test drive it without them ever coming to the dealership, right? If I would have done those things, I would have been a maverick in my market. I would have been somebody that's completely thinking outside, innovator, instant differentiator. Talk about marketing, instant differentiator. Now my message is completely different than everybody else. Now it's expected.
Yeah.
Isn't that insane, dude? That just 7 months ago, that could have been the ace, right, that I had under my sleeve. And now everybody's expected to do business that way. So what does that do? It forces people to be like, okay, I got to step up my game. Now what is the next thing that I can do what's the next thing that I can do that's gonna make me stand out? And dude, I love that. I love I love what that represents for us.
Yeah. Oh, look, I as you know, mate, I come from a dealership family, and a lot of the stuff that I've seen over the last 4, 5, 6 months, as far as home visits and all of those sort of things, I reckon my grandfather was doing that back in the 40s and the 30s, and it's only really been in the last probably 30 years that the industry has really tried to push the customer through the shape mold that they want the customer to go through, because that suited us the best. But now the pushback has come from customers saying, you know what, Mr. Dealer, we don't want to do that anymore. We want you to come to our house. We want you to provide these services because that's what we expect now. So it's been a real learning. That's the part for me that I've said, I'm excited about that part of the industry and where that's going. I think there's a lot of things happening, and your market has been affected differently by all of this.
Sure.
So you guys went into formalized lockdowns depending on which state you're in. We in this part of the world, like New Zealand went into a lockdown. Australia actually traded its way through it. So that's where I think our learnings, we can take those learnings from your market, because who knows, maybe 6 months from now we might be in some sort of scenario where we really need to focus on that part of our business. So it's great. I think they're great nuggets that you're providing here, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just, it's hard to be enthusiastic because it's it's happening, something negative like COVID, and it is impacting people, and there's people that it's had a personal touch for them, either because they went through the disease or they lost people to the disease, or maybe they lost their job, but looking at it, the glass half full, not half empty, sort of a perspective. There's a lot of good things. And I don't know about any other industry, and I don't really care to know about any other industry other than this industry. I'm telling you that for this industry, I can only see the positive after, obviously, we've kind of gone through it, but I think the upside of what it represents for our industry is huge, man. And I can't help but to be passionately excited about it, because I know it's going to look, like you said, 2 years from now, it's going to look beautiful, man. It's going to be a really good time, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Circling back a little bit to the digital side, what's like from in your market? As I say, we take a lot of learnings from over your way. What's the best practice for in a digital sense now? Like, when you're talking about marketing spend and how the industry is investing over there. Like, is there the traditional forms of media? Your print, your radio, your TV. Obviously here they're the traditional forms that aren't adding as much weight as they used to. So what sort of clever initiatives are the dealer groups over there taking when it comes to the digital space?
Well, I can't talk. It's hard for me to generalize, just because a lot of the talk right now here in this market is about digital retailing, which to me is asinine. It just doesn't. It's not even a discussion. I'm sure you've heard comments already about, that it's just a lead widget, and I mean, I don't even want to touch on that, because I just feel like it's a waste of time. What I will share is, what I've done, right? The things that I've done that I've seen a lot of success with, and what that looks like for me is taking it back to the foundation. You know what I mean? So there's really, right, digitally speaking, that are going to make all the difference in the world. And that's going to be SEO, SEM, social media, and display. But display, I consider display YouTube videos more than anything else. I mean, the retargeting stuff, yeah, but nobody clicks on that. That's basically a digital billboard, right? It doesn't, you know what I mean? You're not going to get a lot out of that. So if you think about it like that, right, what does that really mean? It means Google and Bing, but Google mainly, Instagram, and YouTube. If you take 80% of your marketing budget and you allocate it to those three platforms, you really don't need anything else. Because over 60%, I venture to say 80% of the people that you could impact on all these other different marketing initiatives, whether it be third-party sites or mailers or anything, all you're going to touch them in those three platforms, right? Yeah. Distribution, when you do that, is beautiful, because they don't get a convoluted message. So let me paint you a picture. Let's say that I'm advertising a Toyota Camry, right? And I go to Google and I have SEM for that, right? And I'm optimizing on my website, right, with keywords or whatever, so that it appears. I put it on Facebook, and then I put it on YouTube in some sort of bumper ad that's stuff. Great. And that's the message, right, on those four platforms. But then I have it on Auto Trader and cars.com, and then I do a mailer, and I do this and I do that. By the time I get to that, by the time the consumer gets that information, it's been chopped down in all these different platforms that it just doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so if you just focus on those four channels, you're going to make that message VIN specific. You're going to make that message, it's going to have a cross-channel messaging. that's going to make sense. And I see it on Google, I see it on your website, I see it on Facebook, and I see it on YouTube, and it says the exact same thing. Yeah. Right? And as a dealership, which is the biggest contention that we've had, digitally speaking, I can attribute it better because I don't have 20, 40 different platforms where this inventory appears. You know what I'm saying? And I can what that does on my website. I can see from those efforts how many people are coming to my website, and then I can measure the behavior on my website, right? And I can set goals on my website, which I'm going to go on a tangent here right now to talk about that. If you don't have goals set up, I mean, come on, right? Especially now, COVID, as soon as COVID hit, you should have gone in there and you should have readjusted your goals. That's a digital 101. And if you do that, then now it starts picture or paint a picture, and then all you need to do is just turn it up, right? You need more visitors, turn it up, get more visitors to the site, and it's your website where you get to control it, right? It's not a third-party site that has everybody under the sun on there, and you don't know if they saw your car and who they compared it against and all this other stuff. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like the 50,000 approach. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I'm doing. 50,000. I'm trying to get rid of a lot of these because you should have some sort of presence, but very minimal, like the cheapest thing possible, and then make your marketing effort on those 4 pillars.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, I think it is, as you say, it is digital 101. As soon as you're going outside of your ecosystem, outside of your bubble, you lose control and you lose the value that and these services generally aren't cheap. So not only are you paying usually exorbitantly for the services, but you lose control over the outcome of those services as well. The key to anything digital these days is keeping as much in-house in your ecosystem as possible, isn't it? So you've got the benefit of tracking it all.
But, you know, the caveat to that is you have to have your website that has to be ready for that.
Yeah.
Right? Because, you know, I've been in situations where I'm driving effective traffic. I consider effective traffic that's going directly to the website based on some sort of campaign or initiative on those 4 pillars that I mentioned, that's spending at least 2 minutes on the site, that has a bounce rate of less than 30%, which people say it's impossible to do. It's not impossible. It's very possible to do. I do it all the time, so you can do it. That has low bounce rate, that is in line with the goals that you have. That's converting to the goals that you have in some way, shape, or form, right? I don't know what the goals are, so I can't talk percentages, but that you set, you should have some sort of a benchmark based on whatever you consider, why you consider those goals in the first place, and then measure them accordingly.
To quote a Herb Andersonism, switching gears, my friend. Obviously, we've been talking about the digital space. What about the social media space? You know, it's something that is more probably more probably accepted as being mainstream in your part of the world than it is here. You know, you talk about your guys like your Rudy Treminios, you know, El Patron. You talk about your Jeff Hunters, your Jason Harrises of the world. Like, these people are very much out there on social media, and driving a brand, driving a presence, both. Well, you look at Jeff; he's a salesperson. Obviously, Rudy's a dealer principal, and Jason obviously comes at it from a marketing perspective. What sort of importance do you place on social media and driving a presence for the dealership itself?
To me, it's paramount, dude. So the dealership of the future, in my opinion, is the dealership that studio basically in their dealership. You know what I mean? Like, you're your own content creator in the world that we live in right now, but you're also your own editor, and you're also your own distribution channel. That's how we need to start looking at social media. You know, there was radio first, radio transitioned to TV, and now TV is transitioning into social media. The problem, I think, the disconnect that happens is that we want to treat the content that we put out there like a commercial, right? Yeah. And when we do that, we forget about the social element. But why would you not I just don't understand why dealers won't double down on that initiative, because, dude, the audience is there. You can't tell me that social media doesn't have an audience. So when I hear these statements of, well, I tried that, but it doesn't work, BS. It works. Your content doesn't work. Your message. But social media works. How does the video go viral?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It goes viral because the content attracts an audience, and that audience, propagates that message. So it does work. It's just the content that you're putting out there doesn't work. And when you talk about your 0% interest and your, I have the best deal in town, and nobody cares, dude. Nobody cares about that. But when you start to treat it, how can I be social on social media? Then things start to change. But your how do I say this? The perception needs to change a little bit too, because if you put out a message out there, and Ali Rida said this best. He was on my show way back in the beginning in season 1, and he said, "Listen, it serves me no purpose to be internet famous, right? Because if China, I can't sell them a car. So I don't care if people in China are watching my videos. I care about the people in my backyard. So if you put a piece of content out there as a dealership and you get 100 engagements, but all 90% of those are within 30 miles of your dealership, that's success, man. Yeah. That is success, right? Because that's 100 people that you can sell a car to today. Yeah. You know what I mean? And we don't look at it like that. All of a sudden, we our efforts with millions of views and millions of likes and it just doesn't, that's not how you should view it. You should view it as, how can I talk to the smallest amount of people that I can actually impact, that can either buy a car from me today or come and bring their vehicle to service here today. And when you do that and you create your content for the smallest audience possible within 10 miles from your dealership or 30 miles from your dealership, things start to change. You start to look at it, and then the engagement that you get is a little bit different. I'm not going to say the results because, again, I don't expect you, to get 1 million views on it. If you get 1 million views on a video, it's really doing nothing for your business, right? Unless you live in a metro area and there's 5 million people or, 20 million people that can buy from you. But most places that's not the case. So that shouldn't be your objective. Your objective is to impact the smallest amount of people that can actually buy a car from you. And dude, COVID, what a great opportunity. Again, I hate to use these very positive words to describe a very negative situation, but it's the truth. The COVID situation presents a very, a prime opportunity for you to put those things to the test. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think that like I said, dude, it's paramount, but we got to switch the narrative and we've got to start looking at things differently.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing about social that, I think you learn the hard way is, if you're saying, everything that you would push out there onto TV, let's just dump that onto YouTube or Facebook or whatever the case may be. That doesn't get engagement because it's just an ad. What gets engagement is when you build a brand, whether you're building a brand as a like a Jeff, like as a salesperson being the go-to guy for Chevy. I think when I think Chevy, I think Jeff, and I'm in Australia. I can't even buy a bloody Chevy, but I think Jeff, right? But and when I think about out there dealer principals, business owners, you think of Rudy.
Sure.
These people are building a brand. They're not out there on social selling anything. They're building a brand. They're selling, it's the old school of selling their dealership. It's the modern day version of walking a brand new customer to the service department and introducing them to the service advisor, isn't it?
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. And it's funny because we don't realize the impact of the platform, and it's also a little frustrating as well because, again, I have these conversations all the time where we're talking about things that, guys, time out. Like that's not how you should be looking at this. You know what I mean? And then immediately, I didn't get the views and stuff, and they look at that as a failure. And I'm like, no, dude, that's actually pretty good, man. Look, and you can pull these metrics. Like, you can see how many of the people that like your Facebook page, like, where are they from? You know what I mean? If they're all like in China, you know what I mean? You can't sell them anything. You know what I mean? So let's just start looking at it a little bit different, and then change the approach. Because here's the other thing about social media. You got to remember that you're interrupting. It's an interruption, right, to the experience that somebody's having on that platform. Because I guarantee you that the established content creator and people are like hooked, right? Because you're so good at creating content that's relevant. People are not going to go on Facebook to look at your dealership. They're just not. They're there to gossip or to find something to laugh or to kill time. You know what I mean? So you gotta remember that, and your ad, your content, your initiative has to be primed to interrupt that experience, right? It needs to interrupt that experience and capture that attention away from where that attention was initially. You know what I mean? So that needs to be a part of the strategy as well.
Yeah. Should the modern day dealership, mate, be really encouraging their salespeople to be out there and to build that brand, in your opinion?
Yes and no. I say yes to the people that want to do it and no to the people that don't, because number one, who wants to force people to do something they don't want to do? Like, as a leader, I wouldn't want to waste my time doing that. Absolutely. Number two, for the people that do, those are the people that I want to inspire, that I want to motivate, that I want to help, right? And give them the tools and resources to do it. But at the same time, I can't think of a better way as a salesperson. Forget about everything else. Think of a better way for me to get in front of buyers. Even if I had to pay out of my own pocket to pay an ad on Facebook, I would totally do it, because the specificity of the data it just makes sense. I can target the market. I can go 10 miles from the dealership. I can target based on gender. I can target if people were on Auto Trader or Cars.com or wherever, or if I'm really smart, I can go cold audience and target everybody, right? I think people have that backwards. Yeah. Target everybody, take a cold customer and funnel them down to a warm lead. You know what I mean? But I would do that in 10-mile radius. I'd own that. Like, I'd put an ad 2-3 times a day, and I would own that space. And every day, that's what people would see, constantly. So, but that's just me. That would be my approach as a salesperson. So, should it be, but not forced. I think that, there's been some talks and some debates on that, and I'm just not one for, especially because you got to get on camera and stuff. And if people are afraid to do that, it's just going to it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good content. And so what's the point?
Absolutely. There are people out there that aren't as outgoing as you and I are blessed with Brad Pitt-like looks, isn't there?
Well, yeah, that's a thing too, but.
Well, mate, I've really enjoyed our chat today, man. I think we've covered some really great nuggets, and to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised, Herb, if you get some calls from south of the equator saying, "Hey, can you show us what you're talking about?" I wouldn't be surprised if you get any work in Australia or New Zealand, man. I think there's a lot of things that you can go through with the dealership groups out here and say, really shed a new light on what they're doing, especially in that digital space.
Yeah, dude. Reach out to me, hit me up. I'm here to help, man. So, and if you follow me on my LinkedIn page, you'll see some content. I try to post once a week, but sometimes I get really busy, but I try to put something out there, some nuggets, something that I'm doing that has worked, and I share all that stuff. Take a look at it.
Absolutely. I'll put links in the show notes for Herb's LinkedIn profile and website and everything as well. But yeah, as I say, you're a man that gives a lot more than you get, and you know, as we said before we hit the record button, mate, I think we both come at this from an angle of trying to make the automotive industry the best version of itself that it can be. And I really appreciate your time today, legend.
Yeah, man. Hey, dude, thank you so much for having me on. This has been awesome. Yeah, dude, if I can help again in any way, shape, or form, please feel free to reach out.
All right. Thanks, mate. Have a good one.
I did. Take care, man.
Cheers.